Changing mags.
Mags. 1 minute, hostile UAV in the area. Notch 1. EKIA confirmed.
Hi everyone, Gaz here. How you all doing? Welcome to the channel. Looking at the title of this video then, you might think I've lost my marbles. And I'm sure in some cases you might be right. Jerky Chicken! What the hell is all that about? Well, it's not so weird as you might first think, and here's why. I had the pleasure of being invited to join the Winner Chicken Dinner clan for a few games recently, and I have to say, what a great bunch they are. So that explains the chicken bit, but what about the jerky reference, you might ask? For those of you playing on PC especially, you may be noticing jerkiness, slag and general shit performance, so I'm going to share with you a few things that might help fix it. First up, you could roll back your graphic drivers to an earlier version, as many are suggesting online. At the time of this video, for example, Nvidia are on released 526.47. However, I decided not to and changed the number of seconds in game, which cured my issues. Under the graphics display settings then, dynamic resolution is one of the first things that I'll go and turn off. Basically it's come from consoles and I think it should never really been brought across to PC. So turn it off as a matter of default. Unless of course you're facing a ton of FPS drops, then turning it on might be a good idea. But for the majority of us, I seriously just wouldn't bother. For those of you then that are unfamiliar with the dynamic resolution, or the term dynamic resolution scaling, DRS, it's basically a technique that's used for both PC and console games, where the output resolution is changed literally on the fly to improve performance. When your graphical processor, your GPU, encounters an area that puts a lot of strain on it, DRS can be used to lower the output resolution. Under the same menu we have VSync setting. Now again, this is something I always turn off. So VSync is a feature that tries to ensure, I guess, that your monitor is in sync with your GPU, and it will display every frame your GPU renders. So every monitor basically has a maximum amount of times per second it can put a new image, or what we call a frame, up on screen, which is also known as its refresh rate and measured in hertz. A monitor with a 60 Hz display, for example, can show up to 60 frames per second, whereas a 144 Hz monitor can display up to 144 frames per second, which is what I've got. If you play a game that runs at 100 frames though per second on a 60 Hz monitor, you might actually start to experience something that's called screen tearing. So screen tearing basically happens when your screen isn't in sync with your GPU, causing it to display a new image before the old one has actually finished rendering. And I think I've certainly had this myself in the past. So it basically can make it look like your game or your video is tearing along what you might say is a horizontal line, as portions of the new image overlay the old one. And so this is where they brought in VSync basically to try and stop that. Where VSync then will work as intended most of the time, there are instances where it could negatively impact your gaming experience. It's frowned upon by PC gamers as it can increase the latency and also increase the input lag, because it's making frames wait for the monitor to be ready before displaying them. The most important thing to remember is that VSync only fixes screen tearing. At no point will it enhance a game's graphics or performance. Next up then, under the graphics quality menu, we have got motion blur, both for world and weapon. Motion blur then is an effect that's used in games where the surroundings appear blurry on the screen as the player moves quickly through a particular area. It's trying to simulate what the human body does in real life. You know, our eyes and our brains work together to create a motion blur. So, you know, they say, don't they, next time if you go for a run, pay attention to what happens to your peripheral vision. So when you're running by, you know, trees or cars or something like that, you'll actually see that they're slightly blurry from the side. It was created then to make games seem more realistic, but unfortunately, as a downside to that, it increases the need for power. It uses more RAM, and you know, and from a graphics point of view, more VRAM, and you need a much more powerful CPU. So those of you then that want that competitive advantage and that superior performance, I would be turning off motion blur, at least for the world. I've kept it on though for the weapons. It is worth noting as well that it can improve lag if you turn it off, and at the same time, when you haven't got that blurriness around the edge of the screen, it's easier to spot your enemies. Now the next thing that's a big thing to turn off, this is something called on-demand texture streaming, located under the quality menu again. Now this bad boy is, in my opinion, pure evil, and I think it's pretty much responsible for the issues that I was facing initially with this sort of jerky and slow responsiveness certainly when you first go into the game. It's actually meant to improve the appearance of textures in game, but it does this by downloading them as you play, and it requires 24 gig of disk space. I mean, 24 gig, that's huge. As I say, in my opinion, it's, you know, caused me an awful lot of issues because I think probably because I haven't got the greatest bandwidth. A shout out then to the Chicken clan there though for telling me about that, because I must admit, although it is all over the internet, I did actually miss it. So and it did actually prove very effective in making the gameplay a lot better for me. So definitely turn that one off. Finally then, there are a few articles on the old Tinternet that are explaining how to go into the documents Call of Duty Players directory and directly edit the options.3.cod22.cst file. I'd highly recommend that you don't actually do this. At the end of the day, the actual file itself contains the number of effectively cores and threads that you can use, and it's asking you to change this line here, render worker count. Now mine was set to 12, so I've got an i9, it's got 12 cores, and that's what it was asking for effectively, and it was already there. So anyone that's not got that or could change that could, I think, severely hamper their game if they incorrectly adjust that, and I don't see why you need to, as I say, because it seems to be correct from the out of the box. Well, that brings us to the end of those performance tweaks then, and I hope you find them useful as I did. And if you can, you know, leave any comments below to see what you think, and any other recommendations that you possibly have, or if I'm talking shit, then obviously please tell me, and that's always nice to know. So thank you for that. For those of you then that have been following the gameplay, you may have noticed that I killed one particular individual, error hash 8217193, probably more times than anybody else, and I think their reaction's been great. So big shout out to that person, and because that did make me laugh. At the same time, you'll have noticed that I've started to use the Bryson, and I've just got the 890 receiver. And I think this is going to be, as I said, I think in one of my other videos, that this is going to be one of the meta weapons that we're going to see in this season. And as I say, there will be another video coming out on that shortly, so look out for that.
Changing mags. Mags.
1 minute, hostile UAV in the area. Notch 1. EKIA confirmed.
Target area marked. You're cleared hard.
Trojan 6-2, cruise missile inbound. 30 seconds remain. Enemy UAV overhead. Ten seconds. Hostile cluster mine active.
A nice victory then of kill confirmed, and once again thank you to the Chicken Clan for the opportunity to have those games with you, so much appreciated. Well, that brings us to the end of the video, and all that remains for me to say is thanks for overdosing on gas. I'll see you next time, or maybe even in game.